Yeah, I think we got to institute a program of free bran flake cereals and whatnot to all square dancers so we can get back to regular dancing. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's now 9 o'clock here in Australia. I have no idea what time it is wherever you are in the lands above, beyond, and over the seas, but welcome anyway. Good to see you all. I would request that while the presentation is on, if you could all mute yourselves. As always, if you do have a comment or a question that's pertinent to that particular point that's being made by the presenter, by all means, you can unmute yourself and ask a question, or type the questions into the chat and we'll get to them before we open the panel up for discussion. As always, Mark Hart is up there on my top left. I don't know where he is on your screen. Mark is looking after all the technical sides of the aspects. He posts the videos, the chats, and all the linkages on the OC Callers website, as well as on Facebook and various other places. And if you ever look for any of these materials from us, from Don Beck's session, from the class programs, and numerous others, they're on the OC Callers website, which Mark looks after. Fantastic resource if you haven't already got that. Today we're going to be talking with Michael Haworth. Michael's been calling, dancing since the early 80s, but I believe calling since 1985. No, actually earlier than that. You went to your first caller school, I think, in 85, and you've been calling regularly since 86. He's recorded on Schick, Shakedown, Fine Tunes, Goldwing, Sharpshooter. He's a musician, an instrumentalist, guitarist, banjo players, and he used to be the lead guitarist and caller for the Shakedown Square Dance Band as well. He was the secretary of the Social Square Dance Committee. He's written numerous documents on the application of square dance mechanics and relationship calling, including his own book, Sight Calling Secrets, which details a number of sight resolution techniques. That's the book we were talking about just earlier. He hasn't got it out published, but I know there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of official and unofficial copies in circulation, because these things do get passed on quite frequently. And they detail a lot of things dealing with choreographing mechanics, relationship states, and how as a machine it all works together. Michael is one of those callers that describes himself as just another local caller, but I can tell you right now, he's mentored, he's guided a lot of successful callers through their careers in the time he's been calling, and he continues to serve as an active caller, teacher, and mentor. So please welcome Michael Haworth.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I wasn't the only caller in the Shakedown band. We had 5 of us. There was Pat Carnathan, that he did the band really, and then Shauna Carey played bass for us. Vic Carey, her husband, played rhythm guitar, and then we had me on lead guitar and banjo, and then just a drummer that wasn't actually a caller. But if you ever try to play an instrument and call a square dance at the same time, that's a pretty wicked thing to try to do. So is the slide up again? Okay.
Yeah, it's up.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about is trying to get to the corner from any phaser, any specific setup in 2 calls or less. Now, the proposition to do this in 2 calls or less, maybe what you come up with is danceable and maybe it's not. So this is not an advocation that this is what you should try to do when you're on stage. It's just, we're just talking about resolution theory here, and you should have the confidence to know that you can get to the corner because she's always only 2 calls away. So here's a challenge. You could just take your checkers at some point here and create any symmetrical setup for later study. We set it aside, and if we have time, which I'm kind of thinking we might not, but if we do, I'll help you go through those if you haven't figured it out by yourself by the time we're done with this. But just keep it to mainstream. It does work with challenge, but if you get into some wicked challenge kind of formation that you're outside of the normal matrix, then you're going to have to probably use challenge calls to get back. Well, that's the way it goes. But all the way through A2, I think you can come up with stuff that isn't too terrible, and within 2 calls, you can get to the corner. So what do we mean by getting to the corner? Well, before we get there, let's talk a little bit about orientation. So when I speak of the square to my students or to people I'm talking to, I usually like to talk about the sides in this manner, the near side and the far side. Why? Well, if you're actually calling to dancers, near side and far side is a term that they probably will recognize if they're sufficient level, and it's easy enough to explain if they don't know what it is. And then there's the left side and the right side, and this is all from the caller's perspective. And you can see we have the 4 relationships here: corners, opposites, right hand lady, and the left hand man for the lady here. Or but we know the 4 relationships that we normally speak of are the partner, corners, opposites, and right hand lady. So all of the references to relationships that I'm going to speak about are from the man's perspective. So sorry, gals, but you'll just have to figure it out like you always do. So key couples, this is kind of a site calling thing. So you have to have some kind of key couples. Normally we choose a primary couple and a secondary couple, and that's just translate that to right hand and left hand couple. There's, if you're using the number 1 and number 4, the number 1 couple is your right hand and the number 4 couple is your left hand couple. If you're using the number 1 and the number 2, then the number 1 couple is your left hand couple and the number 2 couple is your right hand couple. So if you're a gal that wants to follow that number 1 lady as your pivot, which is the key person between the corners that you go to right away when you're trying to identify somebody in the square, then you would use the number 1 couple as your primary and the number 2 couple as your secondary. And if you're following the number 1 man, like most of us do, then this is your primary and secondary couple. So there's this idea of a focus group, and that's any group of 4 along a side of the square upon which you choose to observe, and that observation is your choice. So if we wanted to look at these 4 dancers, so along the left side of the square, we're containing this foursome, 1, 3, 4, and 4. Then that's your focus group. If we're looking at this one, the near side, then it's number 1 and number 2 man and number 4 lady. So any questions on that? Are we good on that? Okay. So create into corner group. So we mentioned in the beginning, what we're really talking about is trying to create a corner group from anywhere within 2 calls. So I'm not talking about resolving the square to a final resolution, a left allemande or a right and left grand in 2 calls, but I'm talking about gathering everybody that you need to form a corner group. And that's exactly what a corner group is. A corner group is a collection of 4 dancers with whom you can create a corner box or line. So if we just take a look at these little pictograms here, this is the ubiquitous corner box. You reach this after heads square through 4. If we're looking at this foursome, we're looking at the left side group, and you can see it's a corner group. The 2 boys have both their corners. And we can also see that this group contains 1 paired couple and 1 unpaired couple. If you're the lady side and looking here, same thing. You're looking at your corners here, and we got a paired couple. This is a corner box, but it's also a corner group. And this one here is also a corner group because they have this people in here needed to make a corner box. And in fact, number 1 couple and number 2 boy and number 4 lady is this corner box right here, which you arrive at it with a side square through kind of thing and then spin this around. So the corner groups always consist of 4 dancers located on the side of the square, and they always contain a head boy, a head girl, a side boy, and a side girl. So this foursome in the center is not considered a group, even though there's a group of 4 there. The corner group contains only 1 set of original partners and 1 set of original opposites, whether or not they're standing next to each other. So we could take this formation and move it into any other formation while we're keeping this membership intact, and it's still a corner group. And of course, you know, both the boys' corners are there. And that is the prerequisite for being a corner group, really. The orientation of any phaser like this doesn't matter. We could take this phaser and spin it like a spinner on a board game, and wherever it lands is okay. You can call the same get out for that setup, left allemande, and it will work just fine. Okay. So practical corner group identity check. So if you've got a little foursome that you're focusing on, how do you know if it's a corner group? Ask yourself the question. Does the corner group contain only 1 set original partners? If the answer is we, then you ask this question: does the group contain the pivot's corner? If that's a we, then you've got a we, and it's a corner group. If the corner is not there, we know it's not a corner group. We know it's not a corner group. All right. So the importance of the corner group, well, it's pretty much a given. One couple resolution is easy. Once you know you have a corner group, all you have to do is identify that paired couple and maneuver that paired couple to the outside, and you've got a corner group. You've constructed that corner group. If you don't know you have a corner group, then you have to ask that question: is the corner present? Because the right-hand lady group is deceptively similar. So you move that paired couple to the outside of the corner group, and you can launch your get out or any phasor that you know within that corner group. Or you can change to other phasors that you know using modules or some mechanical rules. So we can convert that corner box to a corner line, for instance, and then call a corner line get out or something. So here's just a little bonus thing. This is in the handouts, so you can look at it later, but these are just some of the arrangements or some of the formations and phasors that you can create with a corner group. So we have the corner line here. Notice that the paired couple is looking at each other in the center. This one is in sequence. And we have another corner line out of sequence, and the paired couple is looking at each other on the end. So you could look at that. You could probably say to yourself, slide through will create a corner box, and you'd be right. And then a corner box here, corner box out of sequence, the paired couple's on the inside of the corner group. In fact, on the right-hand lady group, when this paired couple is on the inside, you're in sequence. The corner line for the other case of the other people is on the bottom here. And then here's some get outs. Incidentally, if you have one of the couples paired, so if you notice that in these cases, all the corners are standing next to their partner. If we call ladies chain, they're across from their partner. In this situation, they're either always across or next to them whenever you have normal couples. And you can call pass through and wheel and deal when you have the regular couple and then some get out. So take a look at this when you get a chance to look at it. So back to our objective. We're going to try to create a corner group using no more than 2 calls. Any of the following sets of dancers is a corner group containing a likely pivot. So whenever you focus on a group, try to choose one that has your pivot. That way you don't have to go too far if you're actually going to try to resolve it. So, you know, if you've done head squared through and you're using that number 1 man as your pivot, then these are the 4 people that you'd be looking at. And number 1 lady as your pivot, you'd be looking at these. Or if you'd had a side square through situation, then the heads would be paired. So these are the 3 options that you have to choose your focus group. So let's try it. 2 call corner group creation. Take a look at this. How would we get to a corner group in 1 or 2 calls? All H circulate does it. If we look here at the wave that we started from, we do see a paired couple, but we ask the corner, we ask the question, is our corner part of that? And the answer is no. Or if you're using the number 1 man as your pivot, then look here, you see a paired couple, or maybe you don't know who this paired couple is. So use what you know. There is a paired couple, but it's in the other wave, or at least the pairing is potentially there. You know, in other words, you have a set of original partners, and you would know this one if you were using the number 1 couple and the number 4 couple as your key couples, but you might not recognize this one. So use what you know. Look in the other box if you have to find that paired couple. So number 1 man has his opposite, and there's a paired couple here, or the potential to pair that couple, but there's no corner. So we know it's not a corner group. So all H circulate actually gives us the corner group. Here's the corner, and here's his corner, and that's all we need. Okay, so also notice that we have this group of 4. We can look at on the near side, and that's also a corner group. Heads are paired, and sides have their opposites. Okay, and so whatever group you look at here is going to be a corner group. If we look at this one, or the far group, or the left side group, all corner group. How about this formation? What do we do to get to a corner in 2 moves or less? Just look at it for a second. How about extend, and then the girls or boys circulate? So it'll give us something like this if we had the girls circulate. So visualize this extend, and the boy comes out to the end here, and then the girl would be looking out, and then the girls circulate. We end up with a corner group. That's 2 calls. Or if we had the boys do the circulate, we would look like this. So the number 4 boy was on the end before the circulate, and then he goes to around the corner. And you can see that we have corner group here, corner group here. Anywhere we look is going to be a corner group. Does everybody understand this so far? Okay, here's an alternative. How about very centers trade? Can you see the corner group here? Now we really only have 2 options because we can only isolate 4 along the near side group or the far side group. But look who we've got in this near side group. We got heads paired or potentially paired, and then the sides unpaired, potentially unpaired. Okay. And whenever you come up with something like that, maybe you don't see it. So extend, and that would give you your normal old mini wave kind of box. So the near and far groups or corner groups here. Could also use the call centers recycle, and that would create a corner group. So when you get a chance and you look at the handout, try that centers recycle and see what you get. Is this interesting? Well, if it is, hang on to your hats. We can get this formation by heads lead right, centers in. How do we get to a corner group in 1 or 2 calls? Think about it. How about cast off 3/4 in the center's flow wheel? I know it's not the best body flow, but it's not bad. But it's something that you might see. And look what it does. It gives us a corner group on the left side and a corner group on the right side. It gives us a corner group on the near side and a corner group on the far side, anywhere you look. And right away, we can normalize this by having the ends run. Maybe you can see it in your mind's eye that once you have the ends run, you have a corner line. The paired couple will be looking at each other in the center. Here's some alternatives. If you don't like that choreography, girls circulate in your setup. So maybe you could say, if you're calling mainstream, girls, take a look at your diagonal setup and circulate, you know, make it do that. It's stretching the definition a little bit for circulate in mainstream, but that's a purview of callers. They do that kind of thing now and then. So that's 1 call, and that would give you a corner group. Or you could have something a little more normal. Boys or girls run, and then the ends circulate. Check that out with your dolls when you get a chance. But those are 2 calls that get you from a formation like this to a corner group. How about this one? This one should be easy for everybody. What could you do? Does anybody know how you could get to a corner group with 1 call or 2? How about girls circulate? Girl moves up, and now we have a corner group in the 2-face line. Or maybe you thought about boys circulate, girls trade, AC-doocy, and that gives you a corner group in the tandems here. Notice that we have the corner line here, and there's a corner group, and we also have a corner group in each of the tandems, 1 here and 1 there. Okay, how about this one? This one's similar but different to the one we had before. How do we get corner group? How about boys circulate and the girls trade? That's AC-doocy. And we end up with a formation like this. Can everybody see a get out from this formation? Simple one. Ferris wheel, centers pass through, left element, right? Okay, so an alternative from this formation, maybe girls run, girls circulate, and that would give you your corner group. And then just to resolve it, you'd say something like boys trade and recycle, and that gives you a corner box. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, we've gone through some of these, and I've given you some answers, and maybe you're following it, maybe you're not. Hopefully you are. But what's going on here? So I'm using mechanical rules to determine what to look for So the first thing I have to know is what kind of group type I'm starting with. If I know that, then I'm armed to the teeth, and I can make use of mechanical rules to move people in a very direct way to solve those kinds of puzzles. And you can do it very quickly when you're on stage if you know what you're dealing with. So we have 4 group types, and each group type is named for the common relationship that exists within that group. So we have 4 possibilities: opposite lady group, right hand lady, partner, and of course the corner group. So pay attention. If you notice the group you're starting from, you can respond accordingly. So group types, and what are they? What are the starting possibilities? So don't be fooled by the right-hand lady group. It's very similar to the corner group. And when you blow a resolution, most of the time it's because you're at the right-hand lady and you don't know you're there. You put that paired couple on the outside, call left out a man, and you're out of sequence and you got the wrong gal coming back. A right-hand lady group is a collection of 4 dancers with whom you can create a right-hand lady box or a line. And this includes the across the street box, the RBO, right-hand lady box out of sequence. The right-hand lady group consists of only 1 set of original partners and 1 set of original opposites. And of course, both of the boys' right-hand ladies are here. But notice something else about this group. Corners are absent. There is no corner in this group, which is why it's one of my favorite groups, because I like to call over there with the right-hand lady where there isn't any quarter, and then magically she appears. and you call your get out, and the dancers kind of like that. It's like, where did she come from? She wasn't there a minute ago. So the right-hand lady group, you have the same kind of question. So always ask the first question: does the group contain only 1 set of original partners? If the answer is we, then you can ask the next one: does it contain the pivot's corner? In this case, the answer is no. So you know automatically that it's a right-hand lady group. There's no doubt. No corners are here. So to create a corner group, expect to move 2 dancers to their corners and leave the right-hand ladies behind. You don't want right-hand ladies in the corner group because she's the one that's missing from that one. She's opposite the corner group. You're going to move 2 dancers to the corner. So here's an example. We have a diamond here. And if you notice, this diamond has a paired couple, or the potential to pair this couple, and an unpaired couple, but there's no corner. And if you're using the number 1 man as your pivot, you can see you've got a paired couple here, or the potential to pair that couple. And here, there's no opposite here. There's an opposite, but there's no corner. So we know we have to move 2 people to create a corner group. So how about girls swing through? We've moved 1 dancer over, and now we need to move another dancer over to her. So we moved that number 4 lady to her corner. So we've got 1 corner taken care of. And now we move the next one. Boys circulate. Now our diamonds are corner diamonds. If we're calling mainstream, you could do that. Or you could maybe instead, I'll go back to that slide. Instead, maybe you could have the side, the girls hinge, and then girls circulate, for instance. That would probably work, something like that. All right, the partner group can't hide. It's easy to see when the partners are paired, assuming that you know who your key couples are, or you can determine from what people are wearing that they've got partners. The partner group contains 2 sets of original partners, and no opposite is present here. If you look, nobody has an opposite, but you don't have to bother even worrying about this. Once you see the 2 couples together, you know you're dealing with a partner group. So the group contains only 1 set of original partners? Or you ask the question, does it contain only 1 set of original partners? The answer is no. Since the answer is no, ask this question: are there 2 sets of original partners? And the answer to that is we, or yes. So if it's no and yes, then you're dealing with a partner group. And of course, that's kind of, it's just moving forward with the theme, but basically you're just going to recognize that you have 2 partners in that group and go with that. So 1 set of corners exists here. If you look at your left-hand lady pivot here, or your number 1 lady pivot, you can see her corner. Looking at your number 1 man's pivot. You don't see his corner, so you know that this guy's corner must be there. All right, so expect to move one of these dancers to his or her corner. So basically you want to preserve this corner relationship in the group that you're dealing with and move these two, one of these two away from that group. And the resulting group would be a corner group. So let's look at this. So here we have partner box. We get this from a partner line and slide through will work. And how do we create the corner group? Well, we need to move one of the non-corners across the square somehow or into a new group. So we could try this, left touch quarter, and then can anybody see it? And circulate would do it, for instance. So now you have a corner group right here. Number 4 couple, and number 1 man with his opposite. So in fact, this is an interesting get out from here. We can look at contaminations in a little bit. Maybe I can switch over and do that. But anyway, split circulate and then chain down the line, flutter wheel, pass or slide through, and you got a left element. So we'll look at this a little bit later. It's kind of an interesting get out. An opposite lady group can throw you for a loop. Basically, if you can't recognize what you're looking for, chances are you're dealing with an opposite lady group. So you notice here that there are no opposites. I mean, there are no partners in the group of 4 in any of these cases. No partners. The opposite lady group contains 2 sets of original mixed sets opposites, and the partners are absent. So ask yourself the starting question like usual. Does the group contain only 1 set of original partners? No. Are there 2 sets of original partners? No. So it's got to be an opposite lady group. You know that. So here's an opposite lady line. How do we get to the corner? Well, we're going to move 1 dancer to his or her corner. So past the ocean. And notice the corner is over here. So boys circulate. There's your corner ocean wave out of sequence, basically. A get out, girls trade, recycle, left element. Okay. So here's a review. To transform a group to a corner group in a nutshell, we're going to start with a right-hand lady group in some cases. And when we do, no corners are present. So we move 2 dancers to their corners. We make sure we leave the right-hand lady relationship behind. It's either a right-hand lady or a left-hand man, depending on your perspective. If you've got a partner group or an opposite lady group, 1 corner is present. So we're going to move 1 dancer to his or her corner and keep the couple of corners in that original group. Okay. So here's a secret weapon. So this might be a little bit crazy for the newer callers. The intermediate callers might look at this and go, oh, I kind of knew this, or maybe I didn't know it, but I've never used it. And maybe some of the really experienced callers will know this, and maybe they use it, maybe they don't. How many moves does it take to get to a corner group with this pictogram? Can anybody see it? There are no moves are required because the corner group exists in this general column. We have the number 4 couple present and the number 1 couple present with his opposite lady. So we have a corner group. How about this one? How many moves to the corner from here? This is almost the same one that we just saw. 1 move is required. The right-hand lady group is here, and it's here. And the thing is that the right-hand lady relationship is occupying the same corner of a square. So all we have to do is ensure that that doesn't happen. So if we do it like, was that a split circulate? Yeah, split circulate here. We have moved the right-hand lady out of the same corner of the square that they were occupying before. And that means that in this column, membership changed. And when it does, you create a chicken plucker effect, or what we call transition in group speak. So we have a number one couple and the opposites for the sides. Heads are paired and sides are unpaired. And when I say paired, I don't mean that they're standing together as couples. They're just present within the group. So we call this an overlapping group. So take advantage of this overlapping group concept when you can. In 2x4 formations like general lines or columns, the caller always has a choice of 4 possible groups upon which to focus. So you can focus on this far group or the right-hand group or the left-hand group or the near group. It doesn't matter. Whichever group you choose, you have one of 2 conditions. Everybody will be the same kind of group, or you'll have 2 different kind of groups. And 2 groups intersect at a square corner. So the intersection for this right-hand group and the far group is the number 1 man and the number 2 lady, the right-hand relationship. Both far and right are right-hand lady groups because the right-hand lady couples occupy that same quadrant. So if we separate them, like for instance here, I think we did a centers trade in this case. Now we have 2 different group types overlapping. So this chicken plucker effect just happens automatically right here. So you created a corner group. So you have done it in one move. It's a slick way to create that corner group. So let's take a look at using this secret knowledge. If we want to go from a corner, we want to go to a corner group from a partner group, how many dancers do we have to move? Just 1. So in this situation, this one works. Single hinge, and the boys circulate. Look what we've got. Corner group, corner group. From the opposite lady group, same kind of deal. How many need to move? 1. This is what we call conversion. So, you know those conversion routines that we used from corner box to partner line or partner line to corner box? What we're talking about is actually converting to a group type that's at right angles or that is not opposite the kind of group that we have. To convert to that opposite type of group, we can use a chicken plucker effect, half of a chicken plucker. So single hinge and the ends circulate, and there we go. We've got our corner wave there. Corner from right-hand lady group, we're going to use some kind of a chicken plucker effect. And in this case, we'll just use all eight circulate, which is equivalent to pass through and trade by, which is what we use for half a chicken plucker. In this case, notice that the boys are going to move across together and the girls will stay here. And we're leaving the right-hand ladies behind because both boys are moving. So if they start from right-hand lady group, then the right-hand ladies will be left behind, and our transition to corner group is complete. So we have the number 4 couple and the heads opposite. Consider girls trade when you get your checkers. If just think about this, if we did a girls trade, what would happen here? People are standing next to their right-hand ladies. Girls trade, they're swapping positions. So the 2 girls will be moving from one group to the next, and you'll end up in a corner group. So nasty situations. Well, sometimes when we call something we shouldn't call, or we leave out a call and a module and we find ourselves in a nasty situation. So the best thing to do is just avoid it in the first place. But they do happen now and then. And if they do, should you panic? Heck no, the corner's only 2 calls away. So sometimes it's best to normalize first. If you got this kind of a deal, and I'll show you a mainstream routine that can set this up in a little bit. We'll go to terminations and show you that. But basically, if you get something like this, you might be asking yourself, why did I call that? And if you're not prepared to get out of it, then you need to think fast. And the best thing to do maybe is to normalize it as quickly as you can. So one way to do that is outfacers run, and those facing the side walls face to the right. Let's get into lines as quickly as we can. And there we are. And if we want another normalization, we can box the net and there'll be normal lines, which would be even better for the dancers. But now that you have it normalized, getting to the corner in 2 moves is a piece of cake. This is the same one that we had a minute ago. Now look, touch a quarter and single file circulate. The single file circulate's going to move 1 dancer, isn't it? And it's going to keep this corner pair together. So we'll end up in corner groups. We got the side couples with original partners and the heads with original opposites. So we've accomplished our purpose. So just to be fair, here's a 2-call solution from that same nasty setup. Those facing side walls face right and the girls circulate. Look what we've got. Head couple is paired, side couples are unpaired. That's the criteria that we need for the corner group. Now we need to normalize this mess and prepare for a get out. So how about outfacers run? It's just the 1 girl. And so we'll end up in some kind of line. And it'll be a half sashayed line. So now pass through, tag the line, and face in. That'll give us a normal line. And when we reverse the flutter wheel, we'll end up in an out of sequence corner lady line, which everybody should know that a slide through gives us a corner box, and a left element man, short promenade to home, and we're done. So the moral of this story, you can always get to a corner group in 2 calls from anywhere. You can also get to any other group from any other group that's symmetrically set up from anywhere within 2 calls. We haven't gone over that, but I did put the rules in the handout thing. So if you want to look at that, you can look at that. But the same principle applies. It's just a different way to move from dancers so that you create the group that you want. But here's the moral. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I mean, that nasty setup shouldn't occur unless you have something specific in mind and you know your dancers, and you're not going to raise the tension so high that you create bad experiences for those dancers. So always keep your dancers in mind because they're the ones that come first. So that's it. Are there any questions of what we went over?
Thanks a lot, Mike. I've got only 3 questions that were put in the chat other than, can we have the handouts? Can we have the handouts? Yes, the handouts will be posted. I've put them up and I'll be reposting the link to the handout so you can download it out of the chat in just a minute. But the first question was, does this only work for symmetrical calling? What about calls such as from a quarter tag, just the very centers trade? Does it still work that way?
Yeah, so it only works. This is really only symmetrical theory that we're talking about. Asymmetrical requires a different set of rules. Whenever you do anything in the center, you're mostly changing girls around. Let me go to terminations here so we can use something in front of us. See, do I Zoom meeting? Share the screen. Terminations. Okay. So does everybody see the termination sequencer?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say, can anybody identify what kind of group we're in on the squared set right away?
That would be a corner group.
It would be a corner group, right? Because if we're looking at a group along the side of a square, like say the left side, then we have the paired couple and the unpaired couple right here. So if I pass the ocean, heads past the ocean, what group do I have now? It's kind of difficult to see in a tagged line, and you can have 2 options. You can ignore it and normalize to some kind of a group that makes sense, or you can right-hand lady. Yeah, that's not correct. but you can view the ocean wave as a staggered facing couple. So like in New England, for instance, they use forearm grip handhold sometimes for their ocean waves. So it really does look like, they're rearing back. And so the number 1 and number 3 dancers are actually part of the group, the left-hand group, that the number 4 couple is ruling. So this is still a corner group. Now, if we call very centers trade from here, what we've done is we've changed 2 girls between groups, or actually we've allowed 1 girl to exit her group and join another. So what we had before was the number 3 girl as part of that group, and now she's part of the group that the number 2 couple belongs to and the number 3 man belongs to. So we've just converted from a corner group to a partner group. So whenever you do anything in the center, you got to be very careful about what you're doing and observe the exchanges of dancers there.
Would it be a fair call to say that if you're in something such as point-to-point diamonds or a quarter tag or a three-quarter tag that you're not familiar, before you do your 2 movements, get to a formation that's familiar to you?
Absolutely. If you're ever unfamiliar with any kind of formation you're dealing with, get to something that you're familiar with quick.
Yeah.
From here, let's do an extend, and then oh, I don't know. Just for sake of well, how about recycle? Past the ocean. Girls run. Boys hinge. Okay, so there's point-to-point diamonds. Notice we can only examine 2 groups if we think about these people as on their shoulder to shoulder. But if we think about the girls in a staggered situation, maybe we can deal with 2 groups. But when I'm calling, I don't even do that. I just look at either this group or that group. My pivot's over here, so this is the one I'm going to look at. And we've got, what do we have here? It's a partner group, right? So if we call very centers trade, or yeah, very centers. We'll convert it. What did we convert it to? Corner group, because we let the corner to come in. We let this guy's corner come in here. And that's basically the way that works.
The next question was, you use split circulate from columns. What do we got here? How about centers trade and all face in? Will that work as well?
Yeah, anything will work. Or they were talking about that one pictogram with the
yeah, and I think there was a follow-on on that, which was the same thing with the centers trade from the 2-face line where you had the girls trade. Would that create the corner group as well?
Well, let's take a look at that. So sides, pass through. I'm the world's worst typist. Sides, cloverleaf. Okay. And then centers, pass through. Past the ocean. Single hinge. Okay, this was one of those. Is this the one they were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, what was the exact question again?
And no, you had the. Where was it?
Whoever asked the question could maybe talk. I don't know.
Yeah, it was in your diagram, the column, you had the centers trade, or sorry, a split circulate to form a corner group.
Yeah, we did a split circulate here. Okay.
Yeah.
Corner group is in the general column now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it.
But what was the question about the centers
trade
trade
asking
thing?
if you could call a centers trade to do exactly the same thing, just the centers trade.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's centers trade and face in, but I assume that was just to make the lines because they're more comfortable from lines. Mike Sikorsky just posted that from a corner group in a column, a simple way of getting it to the boxes so that if you're more comfortable working with boxes, just call circulate twice. Is that correct,
So
Mike?
yeah, so what he's saying is here's the column.
Yes.
Yeah. So does this work? Yeah, so that's what he's saying right here.
Yeah.
And you can have the boys run around the girl and then you're normal.
Yeah. And the last one
Star through.
is a corner group for all four. So you've got the upper box, the lower box, and the left-hand line and the right-hand line. Is if it's in a corner group, is it in a corner group or a right-hand lady group for all four of those setups?
So yes, I think. So basically what I think you asked me was how the groups overlap. So when you have a 2x4 formation like this, regular lines, this particular group, the near group, can you see my cursor running around?
Yeah.
Yeah. This near group is a corner group, has all the criteria. And if we want to form a corner box, we could call pass through, wheel and deal, centers right and left through, double pass through, leaders trade, or something like that. Or we could call right and left through to begin with, pass through, wheel and deal, and centers pass through. That'll give us a corner box, right? Everybody know that? Or we could call pass the ocean and recycle, and that would give us a corner box. Notice that the corners are not sharing the same square corner or quadrant. So as Mike would say, this is the southeast quadrant, and I would just call this the near right quadrant. These are opposites, but if we chain the ladies across, now everybody's standing next to their corner. The corner group has not changed because we didn't do anything to change this membership. But along the line, that group has changed. So this group is now a corner group. Because we have a corner group and we are standing next to the lady that we call, or the common relationships are sharing a square corner. We call, in group speak, Kip and I call these folks groupies. So if you're in a corner group, the groupies are any pair of corners. If you're in a right-hand lady group, the groupies are any pair of right-hand ladies, and so forth, no matter where you are. If you're in the same quadrant with your groupie, then the groups will be the same wherever you look at. And this is what Kip calls the same pairing state of the square. So we've got corners. It's the same pairing state for the group, and it's going to be the same pairing state for everybody in the square. If we call a ladies chain again, or any equivalent or anything that produces a ladies chain effect, now we have what we call the mixed relationships. So one has a partner relationship and the other has an opposite relationship. Those two are not the same. They're different. They're mixed. And when they're different, the groups that overlap will be different as well. How do they differ? They always differ in the sense that the relationship that is opposite of the one that you've got is going to be the one that you're going to. Or the way I've been looking at it recently is there's one relationship here that's unaccounted for. If we look at this corner group, we have a partner relationship, we have an opposite relationship, and we have corner relationships straight across. Who's missing? The right-hand lady. So that's the group that will transition when you do half a chicken plucker. And that would be the group that gets filled in when you've got the mixed relationship. So this one automatically is a right-hand lady. And let me show you something practical. Let's see, reset. Head square through. Touch 1/4. Okay. So now we know that all the groups are corner lady groups. If you throw an activator on here, you're going to wind up with your corner again. So there's a chance for you to play around with the activator kind of thing if you want. But let's say we call split circulate. I know automatically that I split up my corners. And so the ocean wave has to be a right-hand lady ocean wave. Has to be. So I could call something like boys trade, and I've got a right-hand lady group. I just know that. And then pass through, for instance, and now let's have the girls trade. I know this is a corner group right away. We can call a hinge, girls cross run, boys trade, boys run, bend the line. And if any of that choreography that we just did along the head walls in those ocean waves messed with the dancers, at least now we're back to something normal. Okay, so let's maybe we do a right and left through, pass through, bend the line, pass through, wheel and deal, centers, half sachet, centers face in and back up, and you're home. Something like that. I mean, all of that translates to wind in the face choreography. You gave them a little bit of something that's a little bit different, and then you put them into something normal and gave them wind in the face, and they're back at home. And that seems to get pretty good dance reaction on the floors that I call to.
Well, that's all the questions that were posted. The essence of what you're saying is if you're calling symmetrical choreography, no matter what you go, if you get lost and you're not sure and you need to resolve quickly, have a quick look. As soon as you pair up one, you can have a look to see if you're in a corner group, right-hand group, and in 2 moves, you can get that corner group established ready for a resolution if you want to go through that process. It's a very quick, easy way to build that corner relationship, that corner group relationship. And once you have that relationship identified, it's very easy to get out from there.
That's in essence what I'm saying. The other thing about it is that if you practice this skill to the point where you can identify a group and always create a corner group within 2 moves, that what reinforces the principles behind the square mechanics, basically. And so you will maintain control over your own choreography with confidence because you know what you're doing. If you try to just use an algorithm to resolve in an extemporaneous fashion, it's a process that cuts into your timing and flow and is easily identified by your dancers. If you always know where you are when you're calling, at least what group you're dealing with, or if you don't know what group you're dealing with, can quickly identify it, you can always transform it to any other group and create a normalized formation like a corner line or a partner line or an opposite lady line and launch a get out from there and call wind in the face and know exactly where you're headed.
So in essence, if you're a new caller and your resolution you've learned, say, as an example, you picked a resolution technique such as the friends and enemies technique, if that's your resolution go-to, this is another way to add sight resolution by recognizing that corner grouping and adding to your existing choreography for a lot more variety and a lot more comfort and confidence for you as a new caller.
That's absolutely right. And the other thing is, when you're using some friends and enemies method or whatever, and you're ready to resolve, it shouldn't take you very long to resolve, especially if you have control over the relationships and you know who you're moving and where you're moving that person to. So you can always create new groups and reasonable formations and recognize the snapshots that you have burned into your memory. So, it shouldn't take you 20 calls to resolve once you get out there with your friends and enemies or whatever. Just get it to a known setup and call your get out.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, I don't know if you've confused everybody, you've awed everybody, they're just in shock, or it's just so clear, but this is probably one of the first presentations that I wasn't inundated with questions in the chat. Excellent presentation. Yeah. Well done. we're going to open it up to the floor again, hopefully. So if you do have some questions, by all means, ask out loud, unmute yourselves, ask out loud. Mike is giving his time. So if you wanted to look at these things, contaminations, and if you had something symmetrical you wanted to look at and he can show you how it works, please do so. So the floor is open. But first off, thank you very much, Mike, for a great presentation. The slides and the handouts will be posted on Facebook and also on the OC Callers website. Or if you don't get them, and if you don't go to those websites, by all means, send me an email and I can send them to you as well. So the floor is open.
Okay, I'd like to make some comments. And that's specifically about what Mike did, because I'm not as smart as he is and it's too complicated. From what I gathered at the beginning, you know who your partner is. Well, you know who two couples are, the partner in the corner. And for me, how I've done it over the years, that's all I need. So I get everybody, it doesn't matter memorizing or learning things to do from all these other weird setups. I can always normalize it to 2 lines of 4, okay? And when you're in a line of 4, normal, boy, girl, as you will, there's only 4 possibilities. Everybody's in sequence. The boys are in sequence and the girls are not. The girls are in sequence, the boys are not, or everybody's not in sequence. And it only takes 1 call to put everybody in sequence. That's either right and left through, flutter wheel, or ladies chain, or reverse flutter if you would. But you would use, I use equivalents, or you're already there. So if you're already there in a line, think of it as a circle. It's how many times you roll away till you get your partner. But then you have get outs for that. If you're in a partner line, it's Alaman left. If you're in a right-hand lady line, square through 4 trade by, Alaman left. If you're in an opposite lady line, Alaman left, right and left grand on the 3rd hand promenade, etc. So basically, once I put them in the line, it's only 2 calls away to the corner. And that's how I done it. And for me, that's simple. I only have to know the 2 couples. I put them in a line and go from there. Does that sound too complicated? Go.
No, how many calls do you use to get to the line?
Like I say, it doesn't, that's irrelevant. You know, I don't have to have a special knowledge of everything I've set up. Okay. I just know, I don't always, from the lines, I can get them into any formation. I probably have lots of get outs from these formations and different formations. And those are memorized modules, but I'm assuming that I'm at a dance that I called and I got lost.
Yeah, well, so, you know, part of this was a little bit of a captures the interest of people by saying that you can get to the caller in 2 calls, which is absolutely true. And remember, the moral of the story was that you don't necessarily need to always get to the corner in 2 calls. So the method that you said works for you, and that's great. And, you know, callers should adopt methods that work for them. But I really believe that an underlying understanding of the fundamental mechanics, the way that the square operates, will stand any caller in good stead.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying, I'll be blunt. It overwhelms me trying to do all those things. And I'm going to go back and study this with the things and learn to be aware of more of these things. But for a new caller, I want it to be as easy as possible.
Sure.
Bob, if I can interject for a second, working from lines as opposed to working from corner groupings, you're essentially, both of you are essentially saying the same thing. If I set up a line, and then I will know, if I look at that line, I can look at what the sequence state is, either in, out, 1 in, 1 out, 1, you know, whatever they are. By establishing that, you're just changing the parameters. It's the same essence, but it's just a different set of parameters. Instead of looking at corner groups, you're just saying, okay, I'm in, one out. If everybody's in, oh, I'm in a partner line. If I'm in a corner line, you've established that corner grouping. You're doing exactly the same thing, but you're just looking at one formation state, which is a normal line. It's essentially the same process. It's just using different terminology to even reduce this to a more simpler level, taking one aspect, and that's working the exact same thing, but only from a linear state of facing lines.
Yeah. My point is that I can go instantly to where I am in total control again. You know, ask Kip, he's heard me call. I'll go out, who knows where, and be all mixed up. And then it's time that I have to resolve. That's how I do it. That as I get older, I find that's harder for me to do. I don't know why.
Well, let me interject just one quick second, Mel, if you will. I don't know if can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, that's great. And Bob has a really good point. Bob is he's been around for a long time. I understand that when Noah was building the ark, Bob was actually calling a dance for him at the same time. But Bob, your point is well made. And the only thing that I want to say is that new callers should look a little bit beyond the comfort zones that you've developed in particular. Going to lines is a great thing. Every new caller should have that in mind as they start to develop their processes. But in taking a look at an analysis like Mike has presented today, it's good for callers to know that there's also some depth to this. And if you want to take the time to study it, and it does take time, and I mean by time, I'm talking about years. There's an alternative. There's an alternative to going to lines all the time and then delivering a get out. Bob's a very skilled caller. I have to tell everybody that. I love dancing to Bob, and he has a huge library of get outs. But if you don't have that library of get outs and you're constantly going to lines all the time, you can easily bore your dancers because you're using the same get outs from the same setups, and things start getting a simple sameness to them. Bob doesn't suffer from that because of his well-designed library of get outs that he has. But it's always good for callers to know, new callers and older callers, that there's some real depth to this choreography, and when you finally connect all the dots, it is just as simple as getting into lines. Mike and I have talked about it for a long time. You take a look at your most skilled callers that you hugely admire, those guys just float through this stuff. And the reason they do is because they've connected all these dots. They know. They might not want to get to a corner group in 2 calls, but they know they can if they have to. And that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Like I said, part of it was sensationalism, but it's really was an introduction to the mechanics behind relationships. It's really what it was. So
I love that graduation picture, by the way, Mike.
that was a band picture. Picture from Shakedown.
Two of the important things that are coming out, and all three of you are saying it, is start small with what you know, and build from it. You've got some exceptional skills and techniques when you start learning to call, and a lot of information. And no matter which way you go, what works best for you is the direction you should go, and that's what you should build from. Bob uses lines, Mike uses corner boxes, I might use something else, or sorry, corner groupings, I might use something else. But as Kip's saying, there is a wealth of experience and a wealth of information out there, all of these things. And in Mike's introduction, it's the mechanics of choreography. All of these techniques are part of the machine that makes calling work, and they're all linked together and they all work well together. So learning one bit is not driving the car. You can, but eventually you can really make that car sing.
That's why I'm here today.
Let me just say one more thing, Mel, for all the new callers that are listening. You need to be able to have total control over the flow and your timing on your delivery of calls. And the best way to do that, that's going to help you in the future to understand all the stuff that was discussed today, is to call the two couples. You must, and it's the easiest thing in the world, you've got to have two couples of friends. If you're a caller today and you don't have two couples that you can call your friends to invite over to your house, push the kitchen table back, and you call for these two couples, then you've got some other issues. But if new callers will do that and spend a lot of time calling to just two couples, then all of this business about moving one dancer out of a group and into another one will make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And so that's my highest recommendation for new callers. Call the two couples. Don't call for a full square. Call for two couples as often as you can.
You know, when you are calling for the two square, you only have those two choices. If you can call something that keeps a group of four intact, or you can call something that moves somebody out of that group of four. And when you're moving somebody out of that group of four, you only have two choices. You can move one dancer or the effective two dancers. There are no other options in symmetrical choreography.
Isn't one of the most important realizations also that it's damn hard to actually move one dancer. It's very easy to move two dancers, and being from a corner group to a right-hand lady group, that's easy, but then you know how to check out what I got. But there are very few calls that actually moves one dancer. At basic, I think there's one where all dancers are involved. It's a column circulate. Mainstream, the spin chain through.
Yeah, circulate.
Unless you specifically say something that the center should do something, or the end should circulate, or where it is. Otherwise, you just have those the grouping you more or less started with.
Spin chain through.
Yeah, I said it.
Yeah. So
there's grand swing through and plus, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. There are very few. I'd like to actually add on to that what Kip was saying. Calling to two couples is a fantastic exercise. When you're actually starting calling and you do have a square, if you want another really, really good exercise of identifying the corner groups that's along the same vein, is try to break up a grouping. Try and make it so that nobody's paired. It's the hardest thing to actually get away from what you want. It's when I start resolution, like teaching a site resolution technique, that's what the first thing I do is say, right, I want you to break up couples. I want you to make sure that these couples don't dance together. It's very, very hard to do. Of course, when you're a new caller, and even when you're an experienced caller, when it does time to get to resolve, it's so hard to break them up. But you're right 80% of the time mathematically, but it only works out that 20% of the time that right actually translates to the proper element left. But that's just the nuance of the game. Excellent points, and excellent point, Goo. Let's open it up to a couple of the new dancers and new call. Sorry, Daryl, I didn't see you with your hand raised down there. Get a comment from Daryl, and then we'll open it up to all of the newer callers. If you have anything that you want to ask, go ahead, Daryl.
Tip is that two couples. You learn more from doing things, because basically what you've got in that square is you've got two sets of two couples. Your diagonal opposite or mirror image tells you what the other half of the square is. Now you've got two couples adjacent, right? Now in those two couples, I don't care which side of the square that you look at, the right side, left side, near side, far side, whatever direction your grid is going, you look at those four dancers, you're either going to have two parts of those two couples, the initial four dancers. That's it. If you've got two parts of it, that means everybody has their partner. You have partner boxes or lines, whichever you like. If you only see two, or if you see all four, you could have either way. If you see 3, you know that you have a corner situation or right-hand lady. If the corners are in the same box, you have a corner box. If the corners aren't in the same box, now I'm not talking about the corner couples, I'm talking about the corners themselves. If they're in the same box, you have a corner box. If you got the 3 parts and the corner's not in the box, you have a right-hand lady box. Now, the only other possibility is no people, no parts. That means you have an opposite lady box. I know that's an awful lot to say, but it's just 2, 4, or none, right? 2, 4, excuse me, 1, odds and evens. It can be a 1 and 3 in the box, 2 or 4 in the box, or none in the box. 3 possible situations.
Yeah, there's
That's
lots
it.
of different ways to look at it. And for this presentation, I just chose one way. Daryl's written a really great
It was
paper
very good.
on. What was that, Daryl?
Daryl's been having a bit of computer problems all morning. He's locking up a little earlier as well in Don and Dan's presentation.
I'm very good. My phone is ringing, so I tried to mute myself.
Oh, well, Daryl's written a very nice paper on simplified site resolution, which is basically the fundamentals of what we're talking about. And there's just lots of different ways to look at it. If you look at the mechanics as the skeleton of how the square operates, any technique that you're using that's successful for you can be described in terms of those mechanics. And I have described it in different ways for different people. And when I see that somebody I'm working with doesn't understand, I change my tact and try to find a way that they understand it. But you know, there is no wrong way if it's working for you. I think that once you've mastered some of these concepts and are able to move from one place to another and actually know what's going on, your options are almost limitless. If I'm site calling and I have a square in front of me, use a pilot square, and for some reason they break down, if I know the group type, I can switch to any other square on the floor and use them as a pilot square, get everybody out quickly, and we're golden. If I don't know.
My final point would be, we all do the same thing, Mike.
Yeah.
Have a different way of describing it. The mechanic and other. Those of us that are capable, all are doing exactly the same thing. How we take advantage of those mechanics is different.
Yeah.
Mike, I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure, Mike.
Okay, what I'd like you to do, particularly for the benefit of the newer callers here, is show how they are, if they're in a column, if the new caller that's trying to learn the site call all of a sudden sees that the corner group is in a column. They may not know how to work with that. And of course, we know they can circulate twice and have a box and they can play with that. But what if they want to do something else? Show them how they can face in, and they'll have a right-hand lady facing box. And then they're only a couple calls away from setting up the Jerry Story pass-through trade by Alaman left. That's what I'd like you to show everybody.
You want to put yours up, or you want me to do it, Mike?
I was going to have Mike Haworth do it. It's just, he knows what I'm talking about.
I'm not sure I do. So first, let me get the taminations back up there, Mike, and then if you'd repeat what you want me to show them, I'll.
Okay.
In fact, I can't find the stupid taminations, but can you see the Bill Ackerman's program?
You get SD caller up there. That's good.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. What did you want? What did you want me to show them?
First of all, put them in a corner group column, because the new callers I know have a hard time working. How do I get them from there to a corner box for an Alaman left?
Okay, there's a corner box column, if that's what you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Is that what you meant?
No, I had something else set up, so I'm going to withdraw my comment and
You want the ladies chain first?
I know I had something else figured out and I got my thoughts crossed.
Okay.
So, yeah, anyway, go ahead. I'll just withdraw it. I'll present a little later if I figure it out.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what you're asking, but basically, if you have a column, it's a 2x4 situation. This group here exists, and this group here exists, and they happen to be the same group type. Corners. We have a paired couple in the opposite pair, and the corner is present within this group. So if we were using
Right.
the slick, fast resolution system that Daryl published, then we see we've got one paired couple and we've got one unpaired couple. Well, normalize it as quickly as you can, maybe scoot back, and then boy run. And then while you're doing that, check to see if the corner is present within that little group of four that you're focusing on. And she is present, so you know it's the corner group. We have the exact same situation on the other side of the square. You use Daryl's quick and dirty method. You see that it's got a paired couple in here and an unpaired couple on there. If you're following the number one lady, or if you're following the number one man, same difference. There's a paired couple and there's an unpaired couple. Call something. Let's see what I call trade by right and left through veer left. And while you're calling, look to see, is the corner part of that group? She's not here. So this must be right-hand lady group. So Ferris wheel, move them over there. And then from here, you could zoom and the centers would square through 3 to get to the corner. And if you're noticing where you are, you could say square through, put on the third hand, slide through and back out in your home, something like that. But the idea here is if you see this pattern where you've got one couple that has the potential or is paired and the other couple is not paired and they don't have the potential to pair, then you know it's either corner or right-hand lady group. And the question to ask is the corner part of that foursome? If she is, it's a corner group. Did that kind of deal what you were talking about, Mike?
Well, that's one version of it. What I'm
Okay.
looking at, I created, I had to use, to do it quickly, I had to use an A2 call to get there, but the setup was heads, if you want to set it up, it was heads pair off, touch a
Okay.
quarter and split counter rotate.
Hang on.
Now have them circulate twice.
Okay.
Okay, now what you've got there, as I see it, is you have a corner group in your column, and at the same time you have a right-hand lady box.
Split circulate twice?
No, column circulate twice.
Oh, okay. Okay. So what, now you say you see, okay, so you've got a corner group here.
I got a corner group column, and I'm
Yep.
and a right-hand
right-hand lady group
box, a right-hand lady box group.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So-
what I was saying is, if the new callers see that, then here's what they do. Face in, because there's callers who've been trained and like and still use the Jerry Story system of get out, which is the right-hand lady box set up to pass through trade by Alaman left. That's what I'm working towards here.
Okay.
And so once they face in, they've got a line. Now you can pass the ocean, do things like that.
This is a half sashayed line though. Do we want that?
Well, from there you could do the, sure. I mean, there's a lot of dancers can do pass the ocean from there now anyway. So
Okay.
you call that, now call boys run, wheel and deal. And you can do a right and left through, pass through trade by because you're at the half chicken plucker, or you could say back up, take out the right and left through. Because you could say square through 3 and trade by.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings them back to the corner box. So the point is, at least sometimes, you have a corner group column, and at the same time you have a right-hand lady box.
Yes.
And if you do, you can face in to get that right-hand lady box for your Jerry story pass-through trade by element left.
Yeah. So that was the overlapping groups thing that we looked at. So the
Okay,
idea here
I wanted to
is,
show a way to work with it for the new callers.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay. If you see this, another way to work with that would be, girls, just you turn back and it normalizes things right away. Or you can have the girls run, for instance, and then touch a quarter and have the girls scoot back and then have the boys scoot back and then the boys run. And then you're to lines. And you can, from here, pass through, wheel and deal. And the centers could square through 3, or they could wheel around, or could zoom and double pass through in the leaders partner trade. But the point is, once you've created the corner situation here, your choice of get outs you probably have the most choice of get outs in your arsenal. Or
what's also nice about that setup, if you're in a corner line group, especially like if I look at the one that you have there, so rather than establish the half sachet, that's where your that's where your split circulate boys run would work, and from there it's just a pass through trade by. It's the same thing. You're just shortcutting to that chicken plucker resolution.
Yeah,
it does exactly the same thing. And if your dancers are comfortable with a split circulate from a column, it'll do exactly the same thing rather than face in and then go through the long route.
Yeah, if they're comfortable with that. Yeah. And this one here, boys run, this is the right-hand lady box in sequence. Pass through trade by gets you to the corner immediately.
Yep.
And in this particular orientation, you can dive through and have the center star through and back up and you're home if you're trying to do at-home resolution. So,
Mike, do a veer left and a bend the line. Just so viewers know here, callers who are involved, Story and some of the other guys refer to this as a Dixie Grand line.
Right.
And it's a mixed paired line where the left end couple is paired, right end couple is unpaired. And it doesn't really make any difference whether it's here or type in a right and left true for me. Or if it's across, just like that. This is the actual setup for a pass-through wheel and deal Dixie Grand, which is the get out that this particular positioning of the dancers is named for. As long as you get the paired couple inside, unpaired couple outside, and the outside band's corner is in front of them, you can do the Dixie Grand. So number one's corner is in front of them, paired couple inside, unpaired couple outside. There's the Dixie Grand. So that's a very familiar place where callers, when they're talking about setting up different routines or different get outs, or if you're talking about positioning for a new call, they'll say, well, starting from a Dixie Grand line, and that's what they mean. I just want to point that out because that expression might not have a lot of meaning to new callers.
Yeah, so callers have pet names for their favorite phasers, and that's one that I've documented someplace else. If we were dealing with it on the corner end, we have a corner group and you see one couple paired here like that. It's just going to do it. The body flow is bad, but from here you could call Dixie style to an ocean wave and it's left element. So I call it on the corner side, I call it a Dixie style wave or Dixie style line. Because if you do Dixie style, then you get your left element. So, pass through California twirl right and left through Dixie style, left element, something like that. So
timing is key on that one.
Yeah, it is.
Have we got any comments from any of the new callers or anything that you wanted to look at? There's still a number of us with it. Like Carol, Helen, Linda, Yolanda. Anybody?
I'm finding it really, really interesting. It's a bit quick for me, but once I have a look at it and spend a bit more time, I think I'm getting there to understanding it.
Yeah, let's do it all over again, but slower. Now, you guys are popping back and forth real quick on here. So this is a piece of cake for the experienced callers. It's a little tough on the new guys to follow what you're doing. I'd like to go back to what Kip was just talking about in that Dixie line. Can you explain that to me just a little bit more?
Sure. So from the squared set, call head square through 2. Okay. So now you have an across the street box. See it?
Yeah, I see it. I gotta play with my bird here too. So I see the across the street box there.
Now you call slide through and reverse flutter wheel. Okay.
So we have the paired up couple on the left-hand side.
So the paired up couple is on the right-handed end of the line,
Yeah, right. Okay,
and the
yes.
unpaired couple is on the left-handed line. What Kip was saying was that Jerry's story and some other old-time callers or callers have been doing this a long time. They call this the Dixie Grand line because you can call pass through wheel and deal to a Dixie Grand from here. No, it
That's your
doesn't-
wheel of deal. Put your paired couples in the center, right?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Pass through wheel and deal. So you can see here that what we have is we have a paired couple in the center, unpaired couple on the outside, and basically the paired couple, their corners are behind them. Diagonally across, I mean, but basically these are all corners here, right? So you call Dixie Grand to a left Alaman from here.
Oh,
And
All right.
that's,
well, it'd be nice to see this contamination so I can watch them go, but
here, let me see if I can get it.
guess
And John, you know how when they say, when you're starting out, they would say a head square through box. You knew what they were looking at.
yes.
Okay, it's the same principle. This is just one that's referred to as a Dixie Grand line because from this setup, if you say pass through wheel and deal Dixie Grand, it's just a reference point to that specific type of setup, paired couple on the right-hand side, unpaired couple on the left-hand side, that will get you to that Dixie Grand.
Oh. Sorry.
So it's not, you don't call Dixie Grand from that line. You call pass through wheel and deal to a Dixie Grand. It's just a reference point. They call it a Dixie Grand line because the get out from that says if you're in that line, pass through wheel and deal Dixie Grand to an Alaman left.
All right, go back to the wheel and deal and show me that Dixie Grand again. I'm sure it's there. It's just it isn't clicking for me right now.
How do you slow this down?
Just grab a hold of the
Go to
cursor.
settings.
Oh.
Go to settings at the bottom.
That's
You can
good.
just do it that way too. You can just grab a hold of that marker
Okay,
and move it around.
here is your Dixie Grand line.
Okay.
Pass through wheel and deal, puts the paired couple on the inside.
Yeah.
And then the Dixie Grand, right, left Alamand.
Oh, okay, I see that you're wrong. Yeah, all right.
When you get them back home, Mike, show the same setup with a head star through and zoom.
Just trying to
just do
start
it.
trouble.
Just do a head star through and then zoom. Well, forget the star. Well, whatever. Go ahead. Head star through and zoom. Not recommended good flow, but that's the setup right there.
Yeah,
for the
instead of-
Dixie Grand.
Instead of calling head star through and zoom, call heads
Do
pass
that.
through, heads clover leaf.
And look.
Okay. There's a Dixie Grand. One Dixie Grand setup. So if you want to call Dixie Grant to a left Alamand, the opposite lady is always involved. It's an opposite lady thing to get to the corner. If you want to call Dixie Grant to some other kind of resolution, then it's going to involve somebody else. But here, let's look at the wheel and deal, because this, when I was learning to call, I think it took me a while to really understand this. I was calling it a lot and I really didn't understand it. Pair off. Slide through. Okay.
Mike, can you just hit the settings button at the bottom?
Yeah.
And then on the right-hand side, just turn the dancer speed to normal.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be.
Just click on it. Yeah.
Yep.
That'll slow it down for you so you can watch them do it.
Okay, good. So wheel and deal. So wheel and deal changes the grid of the square, right? So right now we're working on a left to right kind of traffic pattern, even though we have the facing lines here. If we were to call star through and then the chicken plucker kind of deal, we're moving right to left. And if we do pass through wheel and deal, we're changing the traffic pattern from near to far, or north to south, as Mike might say, or somebody else use compass points, whatever. When we call pass through wheel and deal, these two couples will end up facing each other, but once removed. So if I just want to change the grid pattern, I call pass through trade by, or pass through wheel and deal, centers pass through. So let's take a look at that really quickly. Pass through, okay, wheel and deal. Now notice they're facing each other, but they're once removed. There's somebody in between. So I have to call centers pass through to bring those couples back together. But you can do that. You can make sure that those couples are together and you don't want to split them up, but you call the pass through wheel and deal and centers pass through. You've just given these centers the experience of dancing with somebody else, but you're keeping that little group the same. So if you're using two couple choreography with a real square, you can mix it up a little bit, at least the perception that you're mixing it up a little bit, and bring the group right back together. Okay.
And
The
that's
other thing,
classic example that we discussed when we were talking isolated site. That's one of those interactive sequences like Ferris wheel pass through, wheel and deal, centers pass through.
right. So now another interesting thing about this pass through wheel and deal sequence is that the one that's in the line with you will end up on the same side that you're on once you're done. So let's do pass through wheel and deal. Notice, oh, I don't want the centers pass through. Just want wheel and deal. Notice when we started this, 3 and 1 are in the same line with number 4. After we do wheel and deal, number 4 is in the center and 3 and 1 are right behind them. So if you wanted to pair up and do a chicken plucker effect, you've just completed a chicken plucker effect in a way. If you want to really have the half check chicken plucker effect, you can do a zoom from here and centers square through 3. You set up your, what did I get?
You didn't allow the pass.
Oh, I did the pass through. I don't want that.
You have to undo them.
Undo, undo, undo. Okay. So yeah, so the idea here is zoom, centers square through 3 or equivalent. And you just done the same motion basically as the half chicken plucker. I think Bob Elling called that a turkey plucker one time. I'm not really sure if that's right. If Bob's still on, he can say whether it is. But it's just a,
Basically, for me, the turkey plucker was just, I think it was just pass through trade by. Boom. You know, you've moved the squares across. The chicken plucker takes and, oh, I know what it was. The chicken plucker changes the sequence. The turkey plucker keeps them in sequence. If you
okay.
pass through trade by, there's no change in sequence.
Yeah, but the point is, you know, callers have different labels and tags for things that they're using, and it helps them remember it. If that Dixie Grand line is a snapshot that Story uses all the time, so when he sees it, he knows right away he's got a Dixie Grand line, or it's a Dixie Grand line out of sequence or something. He knows that, and so if you have a little routine, you call it a turkey plucker, you'll remember that routine far better because your brain will associate that routine with the name that you gave it.
Yep.
So anyway, the thing about the wheel and deal, the pass-through wheel and deal, is it is a control mechanism. Once you get a line here, you can maneuver them anywhere you want and keep these people intact. You can work with this pair or you can work with this pair. And you know that once you do pass-through wheel and deal, the people that we're facing are still facing. They're just once removed. So if you want to work with the other ones, you can have these centers square through 3. That gives them some interaction, and it allows you to work with the square. So let's say we had these centers square through 3. Oh, and now trade by, which brings that couple back across. Now you've reformed the corner box on a new traffic pattern. Kept everything the same. So little modules like that just move people around, but keep your group of 4 intact are like gold. And in this case, you're able to work with the other dancers momentarily or pass through. So it gave them the sense that they were dancing with everybody in the square, which they were, but maybe not doing anything super significant. That doesn't matter. So
what's also nice about these is when you have a setup like a wheel and pass through wheel and deal, a square through 3, instead of always the common, I want to transition this to a right-hand lady box, or I want to transition it to a corner box. We always tend to set up, especially as new callers, a very familiar sequence. Pass through, then we look at the outsides, right and left through, dive through, pass through, or square through 3, trade by. You can do this. It gives you the opportunity to bypass those steps. Very, very similar to what Mike Sikorsky was saying with the corner line column in the right-hand lady box or groupings. That split circulate, boys run, bang, square through, or sorry, and then the pass through trade by does exactly the same thing. It's just bypassing those commonly predictable steps. So if you see it, now you can start incorporating that into your routine, and it gives you a much more flowing sequence that is sequential without being overly familiar. It's familiar to the dancers to dance it, but it's not redundant to the point of I know exactly what he's going to do next because he's setting up a resolve.
Could I add something to that as well? If you talk about the easy changing from different groupings to, could someone set up that Dixie style line again?
sure.
Other type heads.
I'm so used to typing for SD.
Yeah. Or something similar, but we can live with this. No. Now, if we, I think, if Mike would say that in the right-handed group we have corner grouping, right?
In the right,
right
no,
side.
we have
Left side, sorry.
Yeah, the far side is the corner group. That's true.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, sorry.
Far side line.
Yeah, You're using the wrong colors for me, but okay. The far side is the,
Sorry.
is the corner grouping. Now, without moving anyone, just called bend the line. We haven't moved anyone from any quarter.
That's
Bend
correct.
the line.
That's absolutely correct.
And we suddenly have a right-hand lady grouping in our lines.
Well,
without
we
actually
have
moving
in the
anyone.
line the right-hand lady group, and then we
Yeah.
have the corner group because nobody changed any membership with what you just did.
Yeah, and that's what Mike Sikorsky was. I think if you're still are you still with us, Mike?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's the transition from the corner line grouping or the corner side grouping in a column to a right-hand lady box grouping, and this does exactly the same. We'll take you from that corner line grouping in the lines to the right hand, or sorry, from the right-hand lady line to the corner line grouping.
Right.
And your line changes to the right-hand lady.
So,
It's
Correct.
a transition to work back and forth between these, especially as Bob Elling was saying, if you have known getouts from these lines, it's a good way to transition from one to the other to something that you are very familiar with. And you can look at that line if you're using like Bob Elling's method, bang, oh, there's a right-hand lady line, or there's the line, oh, wait a minute, they're out of sequence, et cetera, and go for that known, what you're comfortable with resolution.
yeah, and the reason why there's a transition here is because the groupies or the dancers that share that relationship are not occupying the same corner, the same square corner or quadrant. Okay, if we chain the ladies,
Then it won't work.
now everybody is next to their corner. So we have a corner line here, and we have a corner facing couple box here. So instead of operating as a transition, when you do a bend the line, it operates as a technical zero. So you can see that now we have the heads paired and the sides unpaired. We bend the line again. On this side, we have the sides paired and the heads unpaired. That's basically moving between head squared through condition of corner box and side squared through condition of corner box. They're identical in the sense of the phaser, but they're really what they are technical equivalent setups. That's what they are. So if you've got the corner next to you, then in the same quadrant or the station lady or group lady, as crams people might say, then the overlap provides the technical zero effect. If she moves away, like this, for instance, then you have the transition that, was it Gug that was talking? I don't know how to pronounce your name. Sorry.
Good.
Yeah, good give, but it's okay.
Good. Okay. So so we have that same kind of effect that Gug was talking about. So for instance, we could hinge here, centers, partner, trade. What's this partner trade going to do? Two people are going to move out of the group. And now we're back to the technical zero thing again. Yeah. So the way
I'd like to point out that bit of product placement here. We switched over to a couple of very minor aspects of technical zeros and how to make the most out of them. I'm trying to convince Mike to come back and do a two-part session on effective use of technical zeros. So it's a beautiful segue into this. So we'll probably be looking at that in the near future or maybe early in the new year. So stay tuned for that one as well.
So here we have the same kind of deal with the right-hand lady group. After head squared through 2, we touch a quarter. She's right here next to him, sharing the same corner. So without even thinking about it, I know immediately that everybody has a right-hand lady, that every group I look at is a right-hand lady group. If I want a quick transition to a corner group, I know I just need to move 2 people and move her away from me. So if we did a split circulate, that would do it. This group remains a right-hand lady group. I didn't change the membership. We're still only doing 2 couple choreography for these people. But this line here is a corner group because she's not in the same square corner. Okay. And if we back that up a little bit, one of the ways I use this when I'm calling, depending on my floor, after I touch a quarter and I've got a right-hand lady group, I'll call girls trade maybe. And look what that does. It gives me a brand new corner group, and I can use the pass-through wheel and deal. Centers pass through, and I've just changed the grid pattern. And this translates to lots of different setups. Instead of calling square through 2, I'd call an equivalent, maybe pass the ocean and extend. And then instead of touch a quarter, I'll call single hinge and girls trade. And I'm right set up for this pass through wheel and deal. And I'm in the corner box, but I didn't call square through to get there.
Everybody see how that works? Carol, you're shaking your head no.
Okay. So square through 2, right-hand lady group, touch a quarter. Now the girls trade, we just moved 2 people. So we transitioned it to corner group, the pass through wheel and deal and the centers pass through brings everybody in that line back together.
It's the same as moving 2 people across by doing that center or ladies trade, because they're on opposite sides of the line. When you do the ladies trade, you're moving 2 people across. So you're keeping the aspect of the line, but you're changing from the right-hand lady group by moving 2 into the corner group for the rest of the sort of the exercise. That's just another way of moving 2 dancers across from lines. Have the outfacers trade in a line to make facing lines. That is another way of just moving 2 dancers.
Here's another way to call it. Heads past the ocean, extend, hinge. And you might call scoop back a couple times here. That's just a 0. Girls trade. And now you're back to that Dixie Grand line plus right and left through. Pass through, wheel and deal. Centers pass through. This is the exact same equivalent from the squared set, side square through 4. But we started with the heads active, and now we've changed our grid pattern. Yeah. So these kind of little things are just very helpful to help you create variety with a small set of calls.
All right, has anybody got any other questions or anything you want to look at? Helen, you're very quiet today.
Yes, I'm very quiet. This is very interesting, and I understand that there's an awful lot more for me to learn. My problem today is that while I'm still finding out that this really is a right-hand lady box, you sort of gone off somewhere already. So I'm going to have a lot of use of this by looking at it afterwards, pausing the presentation, thinking a bit, and then going on. It's too quick for me. That's all. But it's been very interesting, and I know I don't think you can do it in any other way. It's just that I'm not quick enough. But it's been a fantastic presentation.
It was a lot of material cramped into a short period of time.
Yeah.
Hopefully the handout will recap everything that we talked about. And if you have questions, feel free to just send me an email or chat me up on Messenger or anything you want. I'll be happy to answer questions or help you.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Sure.
I think I'm the same as Helen and John. I'm too new and this was too fast. maybe by watching it again, I might pick it up, but yeah.
No worries. So, you know, if you want me to help,
Yeah, well,
glad to.
the essence of the presentation is just be aware that while you're calling, a corner grouping is easy to find within 2 moves. Get yourself to a comfortable formation that you're used to. If you're not used to dealing with a quarter tag, extend into parallel ocean waves. And then from there, you're only 2 movements away from that corner grouping. Once you see a corner grouping, it's just a matter of keeping them together and putting them where you want for a resolution. It just gives you that many more options. But as always, and as Mike said, and as Mike Sikorsky and Kip Garvey said, start small with what you know and build from there. You know, learn the technique, learn one part of it and see what it takes you, and then just build on it and build on it. It's going to be a long process. I wasn't sure if it was Mike or Kip that said, this is something that will take learning, but it's not, you know, a weekend of learning. This is going to be years in development to get used to looking at dances and sequences in all these different kinds of setups and formations.
You know, Mel, one of the problems I got here is I just about get ready to start going in one direction. I go to another Zoom and there's another direction to come up with. I mean, I'm spending more of my time learning that there's different ways to do it than I'm ever going to get to do one. Because every time I turn around, I got crayons, you got the activator, and you got mental image, and I don't know how many different systems there are, but after hopefully someday we'll be exposed to all of them at least once, and then we can start thinking about which one we want to follow.
Absolutely, John.
So
I'll put
so
it
many
into an
options.
analogy that I've seen on your Facebook. Okay, I've noticed you've fallen a lot of trees and dealt with a lot of trees up where you are, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're always
Now,
digging
you
around
can
the
chop
woods.
down a tree with an axe. You can do it with a Swede saw. You can do it with a chainsaw. You can do it with a cable saw, and you can do it with 15 different types of chainsaws. Eventually, you'll know how to use them all. But to start with, pick the one that you're most comfortable with and that's the most safe for you to use. Once you got that, then somebody will show you another one. But stick with what you know first and then build upon that technique. And square dancing is no different than cutting down trees.
Yeah, I know. It would be nice if we had time to build on one before we got thrown.
Yeah.
Got this fire hose coming at us with 16 more, you know.
Yeah.
All this is good. It's nice to know it's all in the back of your mind, but holy smokes. I mean,
Absolutely.
we're being overwhelmed with stuff
Yeah.
that we have to think about. And it's all in the back of our minds at the same time. So I'm not sure where you guys are, but I'm right there. Yeah, I'll find out. I'll figure out something eventually.
I feel like I'm treading water.
Well, so I think, you know, the big takeaway here is that the corner is nearby at all times. You may not have the skill to get to that corner in 2 moves, and it really doesn't matter. The purpose was to explain that the square is a finite system. The corner is, you know, right there. And whatever method you use to maneuver dancers, that's fine. You know, if you're going to keep them in one group, then do that. And then use a technical 0 or some module to move them around. And as you advance in your skill, at some point, you want to get away from what you're doing. And it's good to know what those mechanics are, or just have some kind of explanation of it. This was just an introduction to what you can do with the relationships. It's not that, you know, you can go out and buy fancy power tools and the best hammers and all that kind of stuff. That does not make you a finishing carpenter. In order to understand how to use those tools requires a lot of practice and study. And that's the same thing with square dance calling. You know, you can learn to drive the car and on the easy roads, but it might be a while before you learn to take it off road or drive on the Autobahn or something like that. You know, it's just everybody at their own skill level, and everybody's a peer here. We're just at different stages of the journey. That's all we are. That's all we are. And so, I hope that what I presented, you can look at and say, yeah, there's something there. Use the document I gave you as a reference and come back to it when you're ready for it. You know, if you're not at that.
I concur with that. I'm well aware of the path from apprentice to a journeyman onto a systems mechanic when I did at work. So you have to start small, get your foundation in, and then work your way up. And then once you have a path, then you can start bringing all this stuff from the side, which makes you more whole. But it's just, I guess, I got to get the path started before I start bringing in all this side action. So
That's fine. Nobody is criticizing that decision. I mean, go for it. We'll support you in that. But you know, the idea of doing a presentation, that there's a wide range of skill within this audience. You know, some of them are new, some of them are intermediate, and some have been doing a long time. And hopefully somebody was able to take something out of it, no matter what level you were at. So
I'd like to comment.
Sure,
ahead,
Bob.
Okay. The gist of it is you want to resolve, and we think that it's complicated and we have to do all these things. And my note, it was complicated for me, but I like to think of how can I take something down to the basic, simplest concept of what it all is. Now, from any column, you know, lines or boxes, and it would be very easy to get into any one of those. If everybody was to face in and circle left, only 4 possibilities. Everybody's in sequence, or girls are out, or boys are out, or both are out. Okay, and that can, 3 calls can fix that. Now, that's how, oh, wow. Well, that applies to the square too. If you're in boxes or columns or lines, I prefer the lines, but I do the same thing in boxes because the same stuff applies. You know, it's all about sequencing, and just got to know 2 couples, and I can then get back to where I want to be. Do I do that? That's probably about 5% of how I call. 95% of what I call is known modules. But how do I give variety to dancers? I do a square through, and we'll pick a common one: swing through, boys run, bend the line, reverse flutter, slide through. There it is. Okay. Then I use my turkey plucker, and I do a head square through, pass through, trade by, and I do the exact same sequence with different dancers. Whoa, that's variety for the dancers. Or then I do heads lead right, circle to a line, or not circle to a line, heads lead right, and I call the same sequence, and it's different. Or then I call heads, then I get them into an opposite lady line, a box, and I call the same sequence. Now, there's a matter of difficulty in all those 4 different sequences for dancers. And this is what provides variety. On the one where heads lead right, everybody has their corner in their group, or partner in their grouping. So everybody feels very safe. Okay, the other is when you square through 4 and you work in a box 1-4, one couple has their partner, but everybody has their corner. That's a very safe place. Once you go over and work with the right-hand lady, one couple has neither of those, neither the partner nor the corner in their box. So that adds a degree of apprehension or difficulty to it. And then if you're able to go to a opposite lady box where nobody has the partner, nobody has the corner, and you call that same sequence. I'm telling you that if you go out to a floor of beginners, new people who have been taught by other callers, if you do the corner or the partner boxes, they're going to succeed. You get into a right-hand lady situation, they'll fumble a little bit. You put them in to an opposite lady box, and everything goes down the tubes. But for you as a caller, you can do this when you teach your classes. If you be sure you put your dancer through each possible one of those box formations when you introduce them to a call, you've given them a lot of variety, and you create stronger dancers. I don't know if that was appropriate or not. Thank you.
That was good, Bob. So basically, Bob's talking about raising the tension based on the relationship that you're dealing with over there. And it's a
Carry
great
on
point.
from what Don and them were saying this morning on degree of difficulty as well. It doesn't have to be choreography that takes a degree of difficulty. Just expanding the dancer's comfort zone is something you want to do slowly.
It just, Malcolm here, just one of the things saying is the newer caller I've just taken away from this, which probably makes it even simpler, is that if we've got one of these like 4x2 matrices, as we've said, you either have got your if the corner group is either the column or the box. So whichever if you've identified it one of those, you just take that column and then you play with them as your corner box, or you take your box of 4. And if it's not, conversely, it must be the same thing. Then you've either got two partner pairs. Now those two partner pairs are either in the line or they're in the box. And again, once you've got 2 partner pairs, you've effectively got 4 partner pairs. And then once everybody's paired up, then again, it's easy to sort of resolve or work through with just partner pairs. So it almost breaks down to two situations.
Yeah. Three actually. You've got, if you've got your partner line or your opposite lines, well, essentially you're in a partner grouping. If you've got your one couple paired and one couple not paired, you've only got 2 choices. You're in a corner grouping or you're in a right-hand grouping. Those are really your only options. And once you begin to recognize that, you're right, it does become simpler. As Mike Haworth and Mike Sikorsky were saying, once you recognize one couple is paired, they're really, and the other couple's not, there are only 2 options. And if you see a corner in that group, it's a corner group. If you don't see a corner in that group, it's not a corner group. And it doesn't really matter what the organization of those 4 dancers in or the formation of those 4 dancers are. If you keep them together, once you normalize, you know you're in a normal corner grouping or a normal right-hand lady grouping. Then it's just a chicken plucker routine or a corner box routine.
Wait a second on that. If you're in this corner line or opposite right-hand lady line, let's say the left-hand couple has their partner, but the right-hand couple doesn't, the end ladies chain and everybody has their partner, everybody's in sequence.
Yep. Yeah, we're not talking just about the get-ups. We're just talking about recognizing the pattern.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
if you can recognize the pattern, you can set yourself up for a get-out a lot quicker. It's just another technique to add into the toolbox.
Sure.
Can I add something? I realized when I was new that the easiest way to find some kind of get out was to actually pair up my key dancer with his or her corner.
Yep.
Because if I have those 2 paired up, I can't have a right-hand lady line or wave or anything. So I've only got 2 options. Either I've got a partner grouping, I've got a corner grouping, or I have an opposite lady grouping. If the latter one, call an all-late circulate and I have some kind of partner.
Yeah.
And from there I can get out.
Yeah. And as you point out, as Bob was saying, as Mike was saying, Mike Sikorsky, and as you just said, there are a number of different ways of dealing with this. The mechanics of the choreography that works is the same for all of these. It doesn't really matter what grouping, what levels, or where you're going at it. The mechanics of the choreography are the same, and they all interact. It's identifying which part works best for you to recognize as a starting point. A lot of people started out with recognize your key couple and his corner lady, and then you just look to see if she's paired or not. That's a very, very basic start point. All we're doing here is expanding that start point to include being able to do that in different locations. If you've got one couple paired, it really doesn't matter because of the mirror image of the set. Well, we learned about mirror imaging. If you've got one couple paired, now you're looking for a corner. Bang, it's there. If it's the number 1 lady in her corner or the number 1 man in his corner, it really doesn't matter because it's going to be one or the other. Once you develop that, it's just a matter of moving. If you're comfortable with lines, use lines. If you're comfortable with boxes, use boxes. I myself am not comfortable seeing corner groupings in columns. I have to get out of the columns to something that I know. I haven't got
Well,
that.
yeah. So as far as that column thing is concerned, I don't recognize them in columns very
Yeah.
easily either. But because the rules work the way they work, I simply know that that group is opposite to whatever relationship I had in the particular thing. So if I'm starting with a right-hand lady group after head square through 2 from a squared set, for instance, I know I'm with my right-hand lady. If I touch a quarter and split circulate, I know the wave is a corner group because I know they are no longer in the same square corner. And so just that knowledge gives me more confidence. Whether I use anything along that wave or not is immaterial. It helps me orient myself to what's going on in the square. And then when it comes time to actually resolve, if I'm trying to extemporaneously resolve, I don't have to go hunting and pecking for my key dancers and try to match them up with this person or that person. I can use whatever is before me and take care of it. Now that's a little more advanced than a brand new caller would have to deal with. A brand new caller, you should probably be using corner groups mostly and just worrying about restoring that burned image snapshot to the corner box. And so, you know, get to that paired couple. Know whether or not you move somebody across the square. If you did, an alarm bell should go off in your head. And then cancel the alarm by moving somebody else across and make sure that the paired couple remains. And then put the paired couple on the outside and you've got it. Or if you're working on the right-hand side, then put the paired couple on the inside and call pass-through trade by and you've got your corner box. If you're working with partners, then you have to determine sequence. And the way I do it is I just put my key couple on the left end of the line and I check to see if the corner is across. If she is, I'm in sequence. And if she's not, I can call a right and left through to put them in sequence or whatever. But it's, you know, there are two resolution paths. There's a corner resolution path and a partner resolution path. If it's a corner resolution path, what's suggested is you go to the corner box with the paired couple on the outside and the unpaired couple on the inside. If you're working from partner lines, the suggestion is to start with a in sequence partner line and then basically turn your back on your partner. And that's the trade by. That's where you get your left element from, or just call the left element straight from the line itself. So once you get used to just doing those two things, then the other two groups, you're always transitioning to some form of one or the other before you call a left element get out. And then other get outs, right and left grand, are basically just U-turn backs from the left element, or noticing that you're in sequence and you can promenade them home or whatever your specialty get out is. But without understanding a little bit about how people move and the mechanics, you spend a lot of time writing material that you don't understand.
Yeah.
And so, you know, my purpose was to sort of introduce the mechanics. I understand new callers may not be able to grasp them right away, but you have them now and you've heard a talk on it. And if you want to expand your study, let me know. I'll help you. No problem. And maybe this tells you a little bit about how the square works and you can take something away from it. I'm not expecting you to do what I was doing with the two couple call thing. It's just, that was just sort of a hook to get you interested, to get you listening to what was happening. It's, you know, the expectation is pretty low. If what we want you to be able to do is work with Marshall Flippo's advice, and his advice or his statement was there's timing and there's flow and all that other shit. all of the relationship stuff we talk about, all of the resolution algorithms that you've learned or things, you know, that's all that other stuff. And it's really unimportant in the grand scheme of things. If you're moving the dancers with good timing and good flow, all that other stuff will come.
Well, with that,
I was just going to, I'm not worried about the fact that I wasn't able to follow everything today. I just think that this has been a fantastic talk and sort of I've got something to work with, and I've learned a couple of things and I've realized a couple of things. I can't use them at the moment, but I've kind of realized them, and it gives me the beginning of a deeper understanding of how the people move when one day I'll be able to watch them move again. So I think it's been fantastic and really, really wonderful. And so I'm not worried. I think we'll work on this, and it'll be one day it'll be fantastic.
Well, thanks for that, Helen. I hope it is, and I hope it you know, if anything, you know, maybe you learned something that I didn't talk about, but maybe something that Bob said that you could use right away, or you know, at least it generated a lot of discussion, and from that discussion, we all get some kind of takeaway, I think.
Yeah, Mike, this is a good presentation. I liked it. I think I'm not sure if I'm my head's above water or if it's just below the surface or not, but I'm paddling like hell. But this will all come in handy somewhere down the way. I'll be doing something. I'll say, huh, I remember Mike said something about that. And I can go back and reference it now that it's all on video. And all these little Zooms we have, there's little bits and pieces that will probably come out and I'll say, I need to do that. Oh, I'll go find out how he did it. So it's nice to be exposed to all this stuff, whether I use it right now or if I use it 6 months from now, it'll all be great, but it's all there. But it was a good presentation. Good presentation. I'll see you all later.
All right. Thanks, John. So my friend Phil Ramey was on earlier listening to the discussion, and I've been working with him for a couple of years now. And he can articulate all of what we talked about, but he doesn't use it in his calling. In his calling, he might actually realize that that's what's happening, but he's not using it as a tool in his toolbox. What he's doing is module oriented and get out driven. And I've been helping him do that too. So the idea is you start with a get out that has some kind of kick to it, and you build your choreography around that and drive towards that get out. And he's being very successful where he's calling, and his skills, his technical skills are coming, but they're not perfect. In this business, there are two aspects of this business. One of them is the technical aspect, and the other is the interpersonal communication and charisma and so forth, the interplay that you have with your dancers. And if you have a good interplay and you treat your dancers well and they like what you're doing, you can be successful whether or not you are a technician. You know, it doesn't really matter. And so Phil's got that other thing in spades. So I knew he was going to be successful right away because he's fun and funny and he can sing halfway decently. And the technical stuff is coming. He's learning, and he's been doing this for 2 years now, and his skills are getting better. But I don't expect him to know all this stuff. When we talk about it, we can communicate. That's one of the things. I can explain, well, I want to set this up, and now how do I do this? And he'll come up with an idea for a get out, and we'll talk about variations of that get out. So I'll go with his idea and we'll sort of riff it, and then I'll discuss the mechanics with him, and eventually it sinks in. If you look at the choreography that you write and you try to see, well, you try to notice the group. Well, I'm in a corner group, or I'm in a right-hand lady group, or I'm in a partner group, and you just add that little bit of understanding to your repertoire, you will become more and more confident. When you're ready, you can add one movement. You know, like when I want to do a conversion, now I don't have to use the magic module all the time, because I understand that one dancer moving between groups is going to give me a conversion. And even if you don't know which one you're going to create at the time, you can always look at that group and determine what it is. And so, you know, just take it step by step if you want to actually try to use this stuff. And if you do use it, you know, I think that you'll have a lot better time, a lot more fun, and you'll become very versatile. But nobody's method is wrong. If it works for you, it's right.
Yep. Well, with that, I would love to say, Michael, thank you very, very much for a great presentation. There's a lot of detail and a lot of stuff that a lot of people are having to take away and think at all levels of their calling ability. For everybody else, if there are things that you would like to talk about, I know we did the last two sessions were predominantly practical application of what we've learned so far. If you want more of that, we can definitely go back to that and analyze calls. I'm trying to get Michael back to do a couple more presentations on applying what we learned on technical zeros and just expanding on that a little bit. Again, with as always, Michael puts together some very well researched and well documented reference books and manuals and papers, so they are always welcome to everybody. If you have topics that you want to see, by all means, send me an email, let me know. If you want to get these presentations sent to you by email, just send me an email. I will get you what I have. As always, thank you very much to Mark Hart. Give us a wave, Mark, so we know who you are. Mark puts all the presentations, all of the videos, and does all the technical sounding and watches the door for when I have to go and tell my wife that the lawnmower is too loud when she's out doing the lawn or something. Again, Mark, thank you all very much for all the hard work that you put into these presentations, and thank you everybody else for coming out. We can leave the room open if you want to keep chatting, but don't feel obligated that you have to stay. I'll be here as long as you want to chat, and thank you very much. We can
Welcome.
stop recording now, but we'll just leave it open if you want to just chat, discuss.